waiting. No one likes waiting, especially when we don't know what's at the end of the time of waiting, what's on the other side of the waiting. What is the waiting going to bring? Does what waits on the other side of silence bring something good or something bad? Jesus' disciples went into hiding Thursday night. For them, it's been 2+ days of waiting, not knowing if they were going to be the next ones to be arrested, not knowing if they were going to be the next to be killed, not knowing what awaited them. And for the first time in 3 years, not hearing the voice of God himself speak to them. Have you been there? It can drive a man crazy. It'll break a man's faith. It's enough to make him wonder if he's ever been sane. When he's longing for comfort from thy staff and thy rod, and heaven's only answer is the silence of God. It'll shake a man's timbers when he loses his heart, when he has to remember what broke him apart. The yoke may be easy, but the burden is not. When the crying fields are frozen by the silence of God. But when you have to listen to the voices of the mob who are reeling in the happiness of everything they've got, when they tell you all their troubles have been nailed up to the cross, then what about the time even followers get lost? So we all get lost sometimes. Have you been there? Have you been at that place where God has seemed silence? Where God has seemed distant? Where God has even seemed hidden? One of my favorite Psalms is Psalm 13. Listen to just how it starts. Picture in your mind David, who wrote this psalm, the absolute end of his rope. God not answering. God not responding. Have you been there? Psalm 13. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and every day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer me, O Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death. Friday was a very long day and a very long night for the disciples. Saturday was even longer because it was the Sabbath. They couldn't do anything because the law said they must not work. They simply had to sit and wait and wonder what Sunday morning was going to bring. Would Sunday morning bring temple priests and Pharisees marching on their homes and demanding that they be arrested too and crucified? Now, in a way, some here tonight may know what that's like. The diagnosis came you weren't expecting. And now further tests have to be done, and second and third opinions have to be heard. And what can you do? Wait. The word came down at work. There's going to be some downsizing measures taking place, but it's not decided yet which department and what workers will be affected. And so you wait. Someone you love in a faraway state has gotten sick and you can't be there. And all you can do is sit by the phone and wait for some news. And wait, and wait, and wait for that sickening silence to finally be broken. And it's the waiting that's the hardest. That's when the mind starts wandering to the what ifs and how comes and what nows. Waiting for answers, waiting for news, waiting for something. Waiting for anything. Waiting for prayers to be answered. Waiting for the hidden face of God to be revealed. And it's hard. No news is good news isn't always true. Silence can be deafening and fear-inducing. And this is what the disciples were experiencing on that first Holy Saturday all those years ago. And it's what many still experience today, waiting. The anxiety of what might be. The silence of the unknown. It is called, these are theological terms, the hidden face of God and the silence of God. Jesus knew this hidden face of God. And God the Father turned away from him when he was on the cross. Jesus heard the silence of God when he prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane for the cup to be removed from him. But instead, God's will was done. And it's in that silence where we actually find the answers in the in-between times. The Father's silence to Jesus on the cross, the turned and hidden face in that terrible time when Jesus experienced hell for you and me, when he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me? That is where our comfort lies during the silence of God. Jesus knows what it is to be rejected by people and to have the silence of God and the face of God turn away from him. He knows what it's like. He knows the pain and he knows the heartache that we feel at those times. Did you hear what I just said? Jesus knows. Okay, Saul, that's fine and good. Suddenly I feel all better now. It doesn't really help me right now. I know you're trying to be comforting me and giving me hope in this, but that really doesn't. How is it supposed to comfort me and offer me hope when during my Saturdays of waiting and wondering and worrying? And the answer is twofold. First, we need to remember what Jesus was doing on that first Holy Saturday when the disciples were waiting and God seemed silent and distant. Where was Jesus? What was he doing? Jesus was in hell. Not to suffer, but he was in hell to preach to the spirits in prison, as it says in 1 Peter chapter 3. We talked about this just last week at our adult Bible study. The word preach in the original language there in 1 Peter does not mean what we automatically think of when we hear the word preach. Usually when we hear preach, we think of what I'm doing right now. That's not what it means fully. In 1 Peter chapter 3, Jesus went to preach to the spirit in prison. The original Greek means the very literal definition: to announce, to tell. Jesus went to hell to announce to the devil and his demons that they had lost. Their hold on people was over. And now because of Jesus, because of the cross, everyone can have direct access to God the Father through Jesus, brought by the faith given by the Holy Spirit. Though the disciples could not hear it on that Saturday of waiting. Jesus was proclaiming in the spiritual realm, they are mine. I loved them, I made them, and I bought them back from you. And Jesus still does the same thing for you and me during our times of waiting. During the times of the silence of God and the hidden face of God, he still declares the same thing. You are mine. 2 times you're mine. Once because I made you, and once because I bought. Even when the silence of God is deafening, and the face of God seems hidden, God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit still proclaim this simple truth, and it still echoes throughout the spiritual realms. You are loved, and he knows what he's doing. That's all part 1. Part 2, the second part of the answer, what to do during those times of waiting, is to remember what happens tomorrow. To remember the future. Jesus rose. And his resurrection proved that God accepted his sacrifice for you. His resurrection proved that God accepted his sacrifice for me. And that means that God will never turn his back on his children, even when it seems that he has. No. Let's be honest. We may not always be able to understand or see what's happening during our Saturdays of waiting. The Lord is still here. He still loves. He still forgives. The cross showed that. The empty tomb proves it. Though sorrow may last for a night, joy comes in the morning. And the man of all sorrows, that is Jesus, he never forgot what sorrow is carried by the hearts that he bought. So when the questions dissolve into the silence of God, the aching may remain, but the breaking does not. The holy, lonesome echo of the silence of God. Tomorrow, we gather together. Today is a vigil. It's silent. Today is a vigil. Tomorrow, that silence is broken when Jesus bursts out of the tomb. And we, wherever we are, whether at this church or if we're going to visit family and friends in other churches, we, the Christian church on earth, stands up and rises and shouts the song, Jesus Christ is risen today. And I know that my Redeemer lives. Would you rise for